Welcome back to another episode of Discovering Your Mission with Dr. Mordecai. Today's guest is a powerhouse of resilience, voice, and vision, Diane M. Simard. She's a psycho-oncology advocate, award-winning author, and founder of the Center for Oncology and Psychology Excellence, whose work is redefining how we care for the whole person in cancer treatment and beyond. Diane's journey from corporate executive to cancer survivor to national mental health leader is nothing short of transformative. In this conversation, we explore how trauma can awaken purpose, how mental wellness must be a part of every healing journey, and how Diane found her mission on another side of adversity. You're about to hear a story that will stay with you long after the final word. Greetings, everyone. Once again, it's Dr. Mordecai here with Discovering Your Mission. Today's guest, Diane Simard. She is a community leader. I have had an opportunity to get to know Diane, her husband, their works in this Aurora, Colorado community. And I had the pleasure of reading her most recent book titled Unlikely Gifts Unwrapped. And when I read the book, I said, I've got to have her on the show. Diane, thank you so much for making time.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so there's so much I want to cover in this amount of time, and I definitely, again, want to continue to promote this book because it tells a very personal story of your journey with breast cancer. But I'm starting to get ahead of myself. Let's first start here. You started in corporate America. You were in corporate boardrooms, and then you have now found your way in mental health advocacy. Can you walk us through how do we get from the boardroom into being a mental health advocate?
Well, thank you so much. And actually, I was trained in college to be a print journalist, of all things. And I wanted a public relations degree because, of course, you can do anything with that, right? And I knew I did not want to be a newspaper reporter. So I ended up taking a lot of jobs doing business writing, proposals, press releases. And kind of fast forward, I ended up marrying someone who owned a business in the late 1990s. And so it was an information technology services company doing a lot of government contracting work. And so at a time when anyone in IT was making, as I always say, stupid money, we were almost having to file bankruptcy. And so I ended up learning a lot about small business and what it takes to really run a business successfully. Anyway, as a result of that, fast forward, we subsequently divorced after we sold that company. And I decided I wanted to give back and help other entrepreneurs launch their ideas. So I did a lot of very amateurish angel investing. And so it was through that experience really that I got the board opportunities. And I learned a lot. I have no regrets. I've earned some expensive lessons. But it was when I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer in 2015 that I had the opportunity really it was a transformational experience for me. And one of the outcomes was that I realized as part of my treatment plan and typical standard cancer treatment plans, the mental health side of this is not typically addressed very much. At least it was not 10 years ago when I went through this.
One of the things, and I would just tell those that are watching, those that are listening to this, the brilliance of your book, it is by far the most transparent published work that I've seen someone really lay out in front of a reader, an audience, of what all you were going through throughout the duration of treatment, from the point of discovery, from the point of treatment to the point of post treatment. And so I'm just curious. I'm adding this question in there. What had you say? I owe it to the world to be this transparent, to share my story.
It was because I'm a solution-oriented person, a problem solver, and to some almost a fault, my job, I felt for the longest time, was to make everyone else look good, right? And it was when I started to really plummet into depression myself during the first part of my treatment, which was chemotherapy, which is understandable. And I started to ask questions of my medical oncologist about if she could refer me to a therapist, someone that could help me, that understood what it was like for someone like me to go through this and want to believe she was in control, but knew she wasn't in control. And it just actually I developed this interest, and I realized very quickly because of my business background that just mental health, addressing those concerns, the emotional impact of this is just not a standard part of cancer treatment. And so I approached it from a business perspective where I thought, well, okay, so we should advocate to bring more attention to this deficiency in the treatment process. But if we don't have enough therapists trained in the unique aspects of cancer, then all we're doing is just throwing up more problems. And I wanted to approach it from a solution-oriented perspective. And that was what really got me interested in realizing and understanding more why we didn't have that many therapists and practitioners trained specifically in what's called psychosocial oncology or psycho-oncology for short.
Thank you for sharing that gift with the world. I'm sure it is currently changing and will continue to change for years to come. Many lives. This is one of several works that you have put out. I'll be sure to include your website information in the bio for those that are watching right now. Take a look at that bio, click. You can visit that website later. You describe yourself as a traumacologist. Can you unpack that? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a great word. And I am just to make it clear, I'm not professionally trained as a doctor or anything really in mental health, but a traumacologist to me is anyone that really recognizes the impact that a traumatic experience such as cancer can have, causes things like depression and anxiety and distress. And so it's really more of the emotional and psychological impact that something like cancer, where you face your mortality and there are not technically cures yet. Hopefully there will be someday for all these different types of cancers. Cancer is such a complex disease, but there's so many different types and subtypes of cancers, and they all behave differently. They all require different treatment plans. It's so complex. And so there's so much to learn. It's overwhelming. This is a diagnosis nobody ever wants to get. And so these three sort of symptoms or side effects, if you will, of what happens when you're diagnosed. And it's not just the person receiving the diagnosis. Those caregivers and even survivors of cancer can continue to have these challenges with distress, with depression, and that can go on and on until it's addressed and processed.
In terms of your personal story, where you come from, maybe your upbringing, I could only imagine all these things prepared you for having to go through the fight of the chemo and the treatments and the post and the now publishing. Where does that strength come from? And I'm curious, now that you've made it through the journey and you're on the other side, and now you're helping other individuals that may be experiencing this, has your strength changed? Your authenticity, your approach to how you care for others, has that changed?
It is indeed more authentic, and it's because my cancer experience transformed me from believing that my place in the world was, again, to prop everyone else up and make them look good, to help me find my own voice and to grow my own self-confidence, self-acceptance, and to realize that I have things to say. I have opinions, I have ideas, I have compassion, and to a fault, so I think throughout my career and some of my life, where I just wanted to fix everybody, and I felt that was my job. And it was really facing my own personal crisis, the greatest trauma I have ever experienced. And I've had a lot of challenges in my life, but this tested me really to my limits, and certainly psychologically, but physically as well. It was a grueling. I was prescribed what I call the nuclear bomb treatment because I had a non-aggressive grade of breast cancer that was behaving aggressively. And my primary care team and then second opinion doctors, everyone said, "Okay, Diane, you're not normal. This usually never happens. And because of that, we're going to throw everything at you that your poor body can take." And that whole concept of, "Diane, you're different. You're maybe a little weird. This doesn't usually happen." I started to embrace that. And it was the first time in my life I started to realize that those differentiators, if you will, is what makes it so unique and special. And we should focus on that. And I had never, all I could see were my faults. And I needed to get better. I needed to be thinner. And all of those ways that we self-deprecate ourselves. And this was just the first opportunity I had to solve my own problem, to manage my way out of my own emergency, because that's what I'd done for everybody in my life up to that point.
Was it this situation that was the pivotal change for you to say, you know what, I need to stop making others look good and I need to take care of me? Did it take this situation to really shift and transform your mindset around that?
It truly did. And in all of this, I turned 50. And I had been mentally preparing myself that at age 50, I was finally going to cut myself a lot more slack, do a lot more forgiving of myself, and not push myself so hard. So I was really actually ready and inviting the opportunity to say, I want the next chapter in my life to look different. I want to stop worrying and thinking that I have to solve and all these messes that the people I interacted with created, that somehow I felt that I needed to clean up. I just didn't feel that responsibility anymore. And it was cathartic in that sense, and so very healing. And that's why, again, this perhaps odd way that I describe, and I put this title in my books, The Unlikely Gift of Breast Cancer. It was because it was life-changing for me. And it's horrific, and I don't wish cancer on anyone, but it was how I channeled it, how I approached this trauma in such a way that I had never even thought about, that something so traumatizing as cancer could be that turning point in my life. And that's exactly what it ended up being.
I want to talk now about the book, and one of the things that you talked about in one of your first books, The Unlikely Gift of Breast Cancer, which sets the tone for your most recent book here that you've wrote. You talk about unexpected blessings through adversity. Unexpected blessings through adversity. What do you mean when you share that?
I realized the way that I dealt with all of this, everything, the shock, the worry, the fears, the paranoia, all of that training that I had had, and I had gotten so much practice at problem solving, quite honestly, in business, in life. There's been plenty of challenges that I thought, I just need to apply those same concepts to cancer. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound like what a normal person would do, but that's all I knew what to do. This is how I'm programmed, it's how I'm trained, certainly. And it just changed my outlook on everything. And I approached it, again, not from woe is me, or we need to bring attention to these problems and these deficiencies. It's some of these are just oversights, and more patients, more caregivers, more survivors would be beneficial to all of us if we just request more mental health support, because I was learning by hanging out by then with a lot of psychologists and those in the mental health field that our body's physical ability to heal itself depends a great deal on the state of your mind. And I was being pushed to the limits. I was so concerned and afraid that I would never feel good again, that I knew, and this is how this all started, as I started asking questions of my medical oncologist about if she could refer me to a therapist that worked with those recently diagnosed with cancer. And she said she knew that they existed, she just didn't know of anybody, but if I found someone, health insurance likely wouldn't cover it. And that just, I kind of went Geraldo at that moment, because I thought, that is really interesting, and that is the answer that I'm receiving. And she said, Diane, I know you're trained, you're very inquisitive, you ask more questions than anyone I've ever met, but this is just something that, and she admitted that she dealt with a lot, and a lot of not just patients, but I mean, multiple years after treatment ended, the survivors that would come back and say their fear of recurrence is getting worse as time goes on. And she just didn't know, because she hadn't received any training in any of this. And so, well, this is something I could take on and dive into. And I love to just attack a project like that. And what I've settled on is continuing to bring more attention to tell my stories, but also to be part of the solution in offering educational opportunities to learn, not just for the therapists either, for anyone who is curious what is so unique about cancer that causes this lifelong trauma. And that trauma can stay buried for a long, long time. That's how we often, as human beings, deal with things. But then at the most unexpected moment, you'll hear a sound or smell a smell, and something will trigger something that you experienced or a loved one experienced during a cancer experience, and it just explodes to the surface. That's often what happens.
Wow, wow, wow. I have a nice amount of college presidents and educators and supporters that watch this and listen to this. For them that are listening, that are watching, what steps, what advice do you have for institutions or organizations, companies, to take steps towards normalizing psychological wellness at all levels
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
work?
Thank you. I so appreciate you asking that question because like everything, employees, constituents, we're all human beings. Life happens. And I believe now, because I've experienced it, that our ability to be productive, to be creative, to be collaborative, and all of those things that you often want when you're engaged in either an educational situation or a workplace situation or whatever that is to someone to be at their best, to be the best contributor, only if they're in balance, if they're in touch with their emotions, if they're at their physical best, emotionally at their best. If something is weighing them down, you're not going to be able to get their attention. And for those, again, involved in any kind of a workplace situation, to just recognize that life doesn't just happen, it does. But in order for those employees and constituents to grow, to just recognize them as human beings, and not just worker bees or someone filling a room. And it has been amazing. And again, I have to disclose that I'm not the expert here, but when I talk to other survivors, especially, or meet them, and they've had a cancer experience, it's incredible how they will just start to talk about their experience. And it's because no one typically asks them about their traumas, about what their life is like. How do you feel? What was it like for you? And then they start talking and they can't stop because nobody asks them these questions anymore, especially if it's been a while. And many of them are still either traumatized or just fearful of recurrence, the fact that this could come back, that we still don't have cures for all these different types of cancers. And it's just the fact that someone asks them about that and cares, because oftentimes when treatment ends, I heard it myself, people will say things like, well, at least it's behind you now and you can move on with your life. And that is a signal. The way I interpreted it was, okay, people are sick and tired of hearing about my cancer experience, so I should just keep it buried. And again, like any of life's traumas and even just day-to-day challenges, oftentimes we don't feel appreciated or recognized for who we are as human beings with thoughts and feelings and hurts and fears. And it's just important to, I think, recognize and remember that, and to invite that collaborative, that inviting spirit. And this is a safe place. And I care about you as a human being. Certainly we want to be successful in this project, in whatever mission that you have. But again, we are human beings, and that's often, I think, forgotten in how we treat the human body. We forget that the brain is part of the body after all, and it too deserves the love and the nourishment and to be nurtured. It just truly does. It's so important.
This is I think at this point the 27th episode, and I'm curious to know. This project started with the heart for mentorship and elevating the voices of those who are in our communities, nationally, locally, to mentor others. And I'm just curious to know, you've been through a lot, you've succeeded in so many ways. You're a champion that has won the fight against breast cancer, and now you are supporting so many others. I'm curious to know what advice, as you think back to your journey, that you wish someone would have told you that now you have the ability to share with others.
I think the most helpful thing for me, I'll go back to what I mentioned about my cancer experience was just different. My body reacted differently. Things happened to me that don't typically happen. And it was when I embraced that and I started to realize that's kind of the theme of my life, right? I look at things differently. I started to identify my differentiators and to celebrate those and to really put more attention on those. And I always kind of prided myself on not being a conformist, not intentionally, but I'm just not one to follow the status quo, because I really don't care if I don't fit in. But it was when I started to accept that it's what makes me unique, is that I have these different experiences from everyone else. And I no longer feel like an outcast or a freak. And cancer really helped me with that, of all things, even though I experienced a lot of that. And a lot of people were frightened because we really didn't know what to do with this non-aggressive grade of cancer that was behaving aggressively that I had. And so when I explained that to people, they were very frightened. And I said, that's just kind of how my life has gone. It's just another challenge. But it inspires me, it motivates me. And what got me out of my cancer funk, as I always call it, was paying more attention to mental health, to wanting to be an advocate and write about it. I don't have the answers. I have no idea what we need to do to solve cancer, to find cures. But what I can do is to say that this inspired me to find the possibilities in this. How does something so tragic and heartbreaking inspire someone like me to say, I am going to take this and view this as this launch pad for chapter 2 of my life. And that's really what I did. And thank goodness I did, because I was looking for something, quite honestly. I didn't expect that Diane 2.0 would be launched because of cancer, but that's what happened. And so now I view these experiences, these heartbreaking, these challenges experiences, opportunities, quite honestly, as twisted as that may sound, because I have learned to look at these problems and challenges differently, to be creative, to see the potential and the possibilities, even though we're dealing with a word that was only whispered when I grew up in the 1970s. No one could say the word cancer because on TV and in movies, the way that cancer was portrayed is that anyone diagnosed typically died and did not survive. And it's so different now. It can be so different now. So I just have learned so much. And I didn't know anything about cancer when I was diagnosed either, because it's just not something I cared to sit around and learn about. So I've had a huge wake-up call as a result of this.
I wish we had more time, my friend. I've got time for one more question, and as those of you all who are watching this right now know, the name of this podcast is called Discovering Your Mission. It's something that we ask all of our guests. That is what is your personal mission statement? Maybe it's your creed, and why? If you could share that with us right now.
Absolutely. So I've settled on this, and because I have found my voice as a result of this experience, and I would say through sincere, humorous, and compassionate experiences that I've had about life's challenges, I want to inspire others to see these perhaps unpleasant experiences that happen to them as opportunities for change, for growth, for healing. And that's really my mission now, is to turn something so unpleasant on its ear, to say, I actually can learn from this and heal and grow.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Diane Simard, author of her latest book, Unlikely Gifts Unwrapped. Thank you so much, Diane, for your time. We appreciate you.
My pleasure, Mordecai. Thank you.
What an unforgettable and deeply human conversation with Diane M. Simard. Her journey from cancer survivor to national mental health advocate is a powerful example of how adversity can not only break us open, but also build us into someone new. Now let's revisit 3 key takeaways from today's episode. Number 1, mental health must be a part of the healing journey. Diane shared how her experience with stage 3 breast cancer revealed a deep gap in the healthcare system. The lack of mental health support for patients, survivors, and caregivers. Her response wasn't to complain, it was to create. Talk about how to make impact born from pain. Number 2, your trauma doesn't define you, but how you respond does. Diane didn't let her cancer diagnosis become a permanent shadow. Instead, she used it to rewrite her life story, finding her voice, shifting from being a fixer of others to finally investing in herself and embracing her uniqueness as a strength, not a liability. Number 3, institutions must treat people as whole humans. Whether in the workplace or on a college campus, Diane reminded us that productivity is directly tied to mental and emotional balance. Leaders must normalize wellness and recognize that every person, student, employee, or colleague, is carrying something unseen. Diane, thank you so much for your vulnerability, your clarity, and your mission. Your work is reshaping how we view healing and success, and your voice will continue to echo in the lives you touch. And to everyone listening and watching today, conversation, I hope that it stirred something in you. Please take a moment to share this episode with others, and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and the other social media platforms and outlets. And also, don't forget, please visit itsdrmordecai.com for more content like this. Until next time, keep leading with heart, keep listening deeply, and most importantly, keep discovering your mission. Take care.